depth. Depth at tackle, depth at running back, depth at linebacker, on the offensive line. The tight end from Florida International, that's going to be interesting how Jonnu Smith works with Delaney Walker. That's a great chance for him to, definitely learn quite a bit at the beginning of his NFL career, being able to sit there with Delaney Walker. The Jags, quite possibly the second best draft in the division, arguably. Leonard Fournette, he's going to step in with TJ Yeldon and make that a solid running attack. Cam Robinson, play him at guard, play him on the right side, play him at tackle. You got a guy you're going to be able to figure out where you want to put him in. Smoot, the defensive end out of Illinois, add another piece to that young defense. D.D. Westbrook, he's had some issues off the field, but another talented guy like a Rashad Green type. I agreed with that assessment this weekend that I heard. Solid hands, run after the catch. Good linebacker in Blair Brown in the 5th round out of Ohio. Solid tackler. And then just some depth guys, a fullback and a corner in round 7. The Texans, I really like their draft. I like how they traded up, mostly out of desperation from what Kansas City did and what Chicago did when they drafted up or traded up to get quarterbacks. But getting Deshaun Watson, who I think was the best quarterback available, was a good call for the Texans. And most likely he's the one who will start first. Out of all the rookies that were drafted, he has the best chance out of necessity because they don't have anybody there to play this season. The linebacker, Zach Cunningham, add him to a nice defense. Yes, he's a drag tackler, but he's going to be able to run sideline to sideline. Brian Cushing's going to be able to play more in the middle and just orchestrate the defense, let the young buck run around and make a lot of the tackles, get through the gaps. Nice pickup there. I really like the pickup of Donta Foreman. Put him with Lamar Miller. You don't miss a step in your running game when Miller has to come out because Blue just wasn't cutting it last season. Julian Davenport, the tackle from Bucknell. That one I kind of scratched my head about. He played lower level competition and he didn't really dominate. He didn't seem strong in the upper body. So that's a project guy, but hey, he's got good size. Carlos Watkins, value pick in the 4th round, the defensive tackle out of Clemson. And then the center out of Baylor, Kyle Fuller. He quite possibly, they have a nice center there in Nick Martin, one of the Martin brothers who's there. I can't remember which one it is now. Had the ankle injury last year. Should be able to come back this year. But Kyle Fuller, he's there as a backup, maybe rotational guard type guy. Again, if I'm ranking these, I say Texans 1, Jags 2, maybe Titans right there tied for 2, and the Colts 3 or 4, depending on how you put it. Colts I would give a C, Titans I'd give a B, Jags a B, Texans a B. I don't have anybody in this draft other than maybe Cleveland that I would give an A to, and that is just because of, again, the assets they were able to pick up for next year's draft. It was very impressive. Moving on to the AFC East, it was almost painful waiting for the New England Patriots to get a pick. They truly did so well so far in the offseason without the draft. And you're so used to them having so many picks that it was odd for them to only have 4 picks in this draft. And they went Youngstown State, Troy, Arkansas, and UCLA. Okay? Derek Rivers, the defensive end out of Youngstown State, rotational guy. Right into what needs to happen there in New England. You need to be a piece. You need to come in and play a role. We're going to use you for this. We're not going to use you for what you're not good at. The tackle out of Troy, Antonio Garcia, he might play some tackle. I think he probably plays more guard than he ends up playing tackle for them. Dietrich Wise Jr., the defensive end out of Arkansas, another rotational guy, might play some outside linebacker. And then in round 6, Connor McDermott. This is a guy who could have gone way earlier than 6, maybe as early as 4, early 4. Played tackle at UCLA, Struggled against some of the better competition, but he has the skill set. He'll be able to play behind Nate Soldier, who's up for a new contract soon, and let him develop. And then, hey, what's New England's philosophy? Cut the expensive guy or the guy who's getting a little old right before it costs them, and then fill in with the guy that you've been grooming behind him. So 4 picks, but all depth, and most likely all 4 of them make the team. The Dolphins, I don't know what to say about the Dolphins draft. It was a C, maybe, C minus. Charles Harris, outside linebacker out of Missouri, in the first round. That one's intriguing. You pair him up with Sue. He's going to learn from Cameron Wake, who's getting a little older. They're going to be able to just let him loose on that opposite side of Wake. So we'll see. He should have a pretty decent year for them, all in all. Raekwon McKinley, the linebacker out of Ohio State. Pair him up there. Again, trying to fill out that defense to compete with the Pats. Solid tackler. Corday Tankersley, the cornerback out of Clemson. Solid player. You know, you might bring him in nickel and dime situations. Probably doesn't start this year. Isaac Asiata, the guard out of Utah. Utah had a lot of linemen drafted in this draft. I like that pick. He's a solid lineman. You could see him starting this year. And then, you know, I like the Davin Godcho, defensive tackle out of LSU. I think that's going to be a value pick as he'll play some rotational tackle for him. Vincent Taylor, the defensive tackle out of Oklahoma State. Okay pick. And the wide receiver out of Virginia Tech in round 7, Isaiah Ford. We'll see if he makes the team. Looking at the Bills, they had, 6 picks in this draft. They were done pretty early on day 3. Again, nothing sexy about any of these drafts so far. They picked up Tre'Davious White. That's a nice pickup. I like his skill set at the corner position. Zay Jones, the wide receiver out of Eastern Carolina, he had all those catches. Deion Dawkins, the guard out of Temple, solid guard. I mean, he's not going to start this year, but he's going to come in, compete, be able to step in if there's an injury. Linebacker out of Boston College, Matt Milano, he should be pretty good actually in Buffalo. I think their best pick, honestly, was probably Nathan Peterman, the quarterback out of Pittsburgh in 5th round, and that's just because of the value they get on that. This is a guy a lot of scouts, that if you listen to all the buzz coming into the draft, really liked this kid. They liked his pro readiness. And with not knowing what's going on with Tyrod Taylor up there, being able to groom this kid, figure out what he needs to learn, develop his skills a little bit over the next year or two, there you go. And Tanner Vallejo, linebacker out of Boise State, quick, side-to-side type guy, probably going to play a lot of special teams. Looking at the Jets, 2, 4, 6, 9 picks they had in this draft. Again, nothing really jumps out off the board. It's solid. You got some players in there. You got some skills. You got some quality guys. Best pick, definitely their first-round pick, Jamal Adams, the safety at LSU. Fell a little bit by some people's standards to that 6th pick. But I like that pick for them. They have a good defense. They need a guy on the back end to help it out a little bit. He's definitely going to be that guy. And it was weird to find out the connection between his dad. His dad was drafted by the New York Giants and played there. So he's going to go play in New York. His dad played in New York. They're just going to be on opposite teams. They went safety, wide receiver. So they go back-to-back safeties, back-to-back wide receivers in rounds 1 through 4. Mostly possession guys that were wide receiver. Ardarius Stewart, Alabama, he's a possession guy. Chad Henson out of Cal, possession guy. I like the tight end, Jordan Leggett, they got in the 5th round. They're a tight end needy team for sure. And he's going to be able to play some inline. He's not the best hands guy, but he's got good hands. Jets had a pretty decent draft. Going through looking at which team was best in that division, I think the Jets probably had the best draft, followed by the Bills, Pats, and then I'd put the Dolphins after them coming up in the rear. So I'd give the Pats C+, B-. They got depth guys, nothing that's going to make a splash or be starters anytime soon, but you never know with New England. The Dolphins, I just think they missed it this year. The picks they needed didn't really fall their way, I guess. Bills, so Dolphins, again, C, C-. Bills, you can give them a C+, B-. They got some guys that could develop, especially the Nathan Peterman pick. And the Jets, I'd give them a solid B. AFC West, the last division in the AFC. We'll start off with the Broncos, local team here. Don't really know what to say about the Broncos draft. It's kind of, for me, at some points I'm like, okay, wow, they really knew what they were going for there. And at other points I'm like, okay, not really sure what they were thinking. I know they needed a tackle. Everybody know their offensive line was pitiful. It was one of the worst in the league, if not the worst in the league last season. They tried, from reports, to trade up to get Christian McCaffrey. Price ended up being too much. So they stay pat in round one. They get the tackle out of Utah, Garrett Bowles. Big kid, angry kid, plays physical. You listen to some former offensive linemen talk about it. He's not able to keep contact with guys. Guys get away from him, and at that point, he's lost control. He's lost the battle. So let's hope with his physicality and his desire to be a good dad. We saw the Simba moment in Mufasa holding his kid up and everything. And he's got a nasty streak. You got to have a nasty streak to play offense or defensive line. It was a head-scratcher for me. I said at the time, let's see how the rest of their draft goes to see whether or not that was a good pick or not. So let's get through it. DeMarcus Walker, their next pick. Like it. He is a good fit for a 3-4 defense, playing that defensive end position. You can move him inside in like a third and long nickel or dime situation and let him play that tackle position if need be. He's going to get some pressure. He doesn't have a lot of sacks in his collegiate career, but he does create pressure and changes the focus of that play. Carlos Henderson, their next pick. Okay, he's got hands, he's got some quicks, he's got some shake. That one was another head-scratcher for me with some of the other players that were still available. Then they come back with the cornerback out of Lamar, Brendan Langley. This is a guy who at one point was at the University of Georgia. So he has some skill. He has some skill at both receiver and defensive back, which is that it's helpful for both positions. I see him playing the defensive back side in Denver and probably some special teams. The tight end they pick up in the 5th round, Jake Butt. At some point, I'm sure Raiders fans are going to be calling him a horse's ass. But that's a great pickup. If his knee gets back together, that ACL comes back clean, I think you could see him in the second half of this season make an impact for the Broncos. They're saying he could be ready sometime in camp or at the beginning of the season. I think maybe by the second half of the season, you start seeing somebody like Jake Butt with his talent at tight end have an impact for the Broncos this year. Probably a first-round talent. I agree with a lot of those prognostications about him that he easily could have gone in the first or second round if he was healthy. So good value pick there. Isaiah McKenzie, wide receiver out of Georgia in the 5th round. I like D'Angelo Henderson, the running back out of Coastal Carolina, especially since they traded away Capri Bibbs. They need that other kind of shifty, change of pace kind of guy. And then at Mr. Irrelevant, Jim Kelly's nephew, Chad Kelly, the oft-injured, the oft-in-trouble, super talented quarterback. In my opinion, he is now the most talented quarterback on the Denver Broncos roster. Tops Paxton Lynch, tops Trevor Siemian. Now his problem is, will he ever see the field?